Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Hey, really glad to have you with us for the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Yesterday's podcast was a real thrill to have Dana Perino, former White House press secretary, join us now, of course, with The Five and America's Newsroom on the Fox News Channel. A lot of good responses, Jim. I think people responded well to Dana's very open, authentic, and really expert insights on the press room and where we stand in the campaign and debates these days. And so we appreciate all the feedback, and we hope to do it again maybe a little sooner than 2 years almost since between Governor Sununu
yes.
and Dana.
No, right before the show, Greg and I were saying we enjoyed it. I think the listeners enjoyed it. I think Dana enjoyed it. We are not primarily an interview podcast, but it's really fun to shake things up. And yeah, we probably should not go a year between interviews. So stay tuned, but don't expect it regularly. You don't need to wait by your computer hitting refresh. Are Jim and Greg going to do another interview? Is another interview? No. Oh, okay. Maybe now.
So thanks again to Dana for her time yesterday. And we are now back to good, bad, and crazy martinis for you again today. The good martini is that the House of Representatives, and specifically the Republican majority, can count votes at least once in a while. Yesterday, they did in fact impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas after last week's really embarrassing episode of not being able to do it, especially after the Democrats peeled Texas Congressman Al Green out of his hospital room and brought him there to cast a vote that really derailed the effort. But Steve Scalise, in full remission now. Very thankful to see that. He's back in Washington by a very narrow count of 214 to 213. Alejandro Mayorkas is impeached, but in the House, it only takes one vote, and there will be a trial now in the U.S. Senate. So, Jim, as you and I were saying, it's not quite the big feather in the cap for the GOP as it could have been if they had done this right the first time. We know, given the numbers in the Senate, that they're not going to get 2/3 to convict him, but there will be a trial, and that could be interesting to bring out the dereliction of this administration in terms of its border policies and so forth. In the end, Alejandro Mayorkas deserves to be impeached because of his complete willful refusal to enforce our border laws, which is also a reflection on the president.
Yeah, the vote yesterday very much feels like a consolation prize. You didn't go on to Final Jeopardy, but you do have a lovely version of our home game to play it with yourself. Look, I concur. And we have a piece over an hour by Ken Buck saying why he did not vote he believes was a violation of the Constitution. I don't see it quite the same way. I don't think those are crazy objections. But I like the idea of impeachment of a cabinet official remaining in Congress's back pocket as a deterrent effect against incompetent cabinet secretaries. And I would note, for all the talk that House Republicans are these crazy right-wing extremists, you don't see them saying, let's impeach Blinken. I think we're all very frustrated with Secretary Austin and how he handled things with his absence. You don't hear anybody saying it's time to impeach Austin. This is particularly Mayorkas for 3 years of the situation at the border getting worse and worse, waves of migrants moving over to the cities. And for most of the past 3 years, Mayorkas has insisted the border is secure. And everybody knew that was a lie. Everybody knew that was not an accurate assessment of the situation. And so it's not just routine spin or misleading commentary. It still remains a really high bar to get impeached. I think Mayorkas cleared that. Nobody expects the Senate to do anything with this. I mean, there's impeachment hearings that go long. There's impeachment hearings that go brief. And I suspect what we'll see with Mayorkas is they're going to have a drive-through lane. It's just going to go that quick. Schumer's got no interest in this, and I don't even know if Senate Republicans are that interested in it. But that having been said, it's a useful sense to say, hey, you screw up this badly, we will say you should no longer be serving as a cabinet secretary. And I think that's a useful tool for Congress to have as a deterrent against incompetence and bad decisions. And the other thing was recognizing that even if for some reason Mayorkas did, step down or something, his replacement appointed by Biden and confirmed by a Senate run by Chuck Schumer probably wasn't going to be all that different. You weren't going to get Homeland Security Secretary Lou Dobbs. You were not going to get a hardliner on immigration enforcement. So, but you take your wins where you can get them, particularly for Republicans these days. And I think our bad martini is a very ominous indicator on that front. So this qualifies as our good martini for the day.
I think incompetence is the best case scenario when it comes to Alejandro Mayorkas. When you think about the president saying no deportations for 100 days, assuming I get elected, the immediate executive orders reversing a lot of what Trump had done through executive orders on the border. Yeah, the insistence until there was a piece of legislation that they liked, that there really wasn't a problem and it wasn't a crisis. And then as soon as Republicans didn't want that legislation, oh, there is a crisis and we're the only ones who are dealing with it, I think, at least I hope, is not working with the American people. But as you said, our second martini might might pour some cold water on that. In the meantime, if you lost sleep last night, staying up for election results or for any other reason, we have some help for you. And it's from Bio-Optimizers, and it's called Magnesium Breakthrough. And right now, you can get a 14-day supply of Magnesium Breakthrough for just the cost of shipping when you go to biooptimizers.com/martini-free.
Did you know that more than 75% of the population is magnesium deficient? And what most people don't know is that even if they're taking a magnesium supplement, they're probably still deficient because they're not getting all 7 forms. Magnesium Breakthrough is the ultimate way to give your body all 7 forms of magnesium in just one supplement.
Magnesium Breakthrough is super simple to take and make part of your routine. You just take 2 tablets at dinner time every day. To get your free 14-day supply of Magnesium Breakthrough, visit biooptimizers.com/martini-free. This offer is only available at biooptimizers.com/martini-free. That's martini-free, all one word. Overcome the struggle and get the most relaxing sleep ever with Magnesium Breakthrough and just pay shipping. Go to biooptimizers.com/martini-free. Again, biooptimizers.com/martini-free. All right, Jim, on to the bad martini, and it certainly is a bad martini. We've talked about the razor-thin majority for the Republicans in the House of Representatives a lot, and it just got even more razor-thin. Right now, Republicans have 219 members of the House, and there had been a vacancy due to the expulsion of George Santos. Well, yesterday was the special election to fill that seat until the November election. And our 2 candidates in that race were former Democratic Congressman Tom Suozzi and Republican candidate Mazi Pilip. And immigration has been a big issue out on Long Island. It was focused on by both candidates. Suozzi claiming that he was kind of middle ground, and Mazi Pilip throwing out ads saying that Tom Suozzi, supported the Joe Biden agenda 100%. So in the end, Suozzi wins the seat. As of right now, with about 97% of the vote in, it's a pretty sizable margin. It's basically 54 to 46. It's a little bit narrower than that, but it was called about an hour after the polls closed last night. And of course, whenever Republicans lose or the Democrats lose, the finger pointing commences. And when it comes to this race, you've got, on the one hand, Donald Trump, who lost this district by 10 points to Joe Biden, by the way, basically saying that this is because Mazi Pilip did not endorse him and was not enthusiastic enough about him. He says this on Truth Social: Republicans just don't learn, but maybe she was still a Democrat. And she had been a registered Democrat. I have an almost 99% endorsement success rate in primaries and a very good number in the general elections as well. It's not 99%, I can tell you that. But just watch this very foolish woman, Mazi Melesa Pilip, running in a race where she didn't endorse me and tried to straddle the fence when she would have won easily if she understood anything about modern day politics in America. Now it goes all caps. MAGA, which is most of the Republican Party, stayed home, and it always will unless it is treated with the respect that it deserves. I stayed out of the race. I want to be loved, in quotes. Give us a real candidate in the district for November. Suozzi, I know him well, can be easily beaten. Of course, those who don't like Trump say this is really a reflection on the fact that there's a dysfunctional, in their opinion, and there's certainly evidence for that, Republican House of Representatives, and that the party is too close to Trump. And so others saying that this is more the district snapping back to where it usually is. And actually, 2022 was a bit of an anomaly with Santos winning. Ed Morrissey over at Hot Air saying he was riding Lee Zeldin's coattails, who did much better than usual in a statewide race. And that's why Santos actually won that seat. So there's a lot of different perspectives happening here, Jim. You wrote about it today in the Morning Jolt. What are your takeaways?
Yeah, deeply frustrating, even if you knew it was not a great set of circumstances for Republicans. I just want to point out that maybe it's a Valentine's Day message when the former president tweets out to the world on social media, on Truth Social, "I want to be loved." I'm reminded of John Lovitz doing Harvey Weinstein back in Saturday Night Live in the late 80s, early 90s. "I just want to be loved. Is that so wrong?" So you can find other reasons. The snow did not help turnout. It's a special election. Your turnout is always going to be lower. This is a district that Biden won by 10 points and a district that Hillary Clinton won by 6 points. So it was not easy sledding, no snow pun intended, for Republicans in normal circumstances. That said, if Santos had figured out a way to win, and as you noted, Republicans had done particularly well in the governor's race in this district a year and change ago, you'd like it to be closer than 8 points. And I think what really sticks in my craw is the special House election very much ran on the issue of the border and immigration and the waves of migrants coming into the country and many being put in the New York City area. The strain on resources that this influx of migrants is taking. And we had, Republicans had a legal immigrant, Ethiopian, Israeli-born woman candidate who had served in the, like there were a lot. Did she have some unique weaknesses? Yes. Yeah, she was not terribly well known. The whole thing about her being registered as a Democrat, that seems like the sort of thing you could take care of fairly easily before the election. That any Republican suspicion that she's not really a Republican or one of us, that just feels like a rookie mistake. But that said, she also brought some unique strengths to it. And yes, Suozzi is a de facto incumbent. He had represented this district a couple of years earlier. But the other things, when he was in Congress, he was there for the first 2 years of Biden, he voted with the Biden administration 100% of the time. You could not ask for a better stand-in for the Biden administration in this race. And to lose by 8 points, or at least as of this count, that's really disappointing, because you'd figure if there was ever a time Republicans would be able to get traction on the issues of illegal immigration, this would be the moment. And the fact that they can't in this district, do you feel better about getting traction maybe in Arizona, maybe in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, all these other really critical swing states in 2024? Mind you, Republicans also lost a special House election in Bucks County, Pennsylvania last night, very under the radar. And Bucks County is represented by Congressman Fitzpatrick, who's a Republican, but probably one of the most moderate Republicans in the House. But this is like classic suburbia. This is where my in-laws live. This is, not, like your soccer mom, minivan driving, white collar workers, and Republicans lost more than 2-1. They got thrashed last night. And one of the recognitions is that by the trade of the middle class, suburban soccer moms going to the Democrats after the Trump realignment, and more blue collar voters coming over to the Republicans after that, the blue collar voters generally don't pay attention to special elections, particularly for state houses. So those are the consequences. Republicans now have a demographic that supports them that does not show up unless it's November in an even-numbered year. And that has consequences. That has consequences this one. Oh, by the way, control of the state house was at stake in this special election last night. So it's not like the stakes weren't high enough. And again, not the friendliest territory, but also not, deep New York City. And they got throttled 2-1 margin. So you look at that, you're like, Republicans are really weak in the suburbs right now. I don't see a Kari Lake doing well in the, Phoenix suburbs. You can point to a lot of candidates who are very MAGA, and that just repels people in places like where I live in Fairfax County. And these places used to vote Republican. Bob McDonnell won Fairfax County. The old style of Republicans could compete here. Now they can't. And that's a really big problem to have heading into November 2024.
One thing I saw in Pennsylvania last night is that Republicans got annihilated on early voting, and particularly mail-in voting. Some people, like Glenn Youngkin, who's one of the very few people to kind of thread that needle between the absolute devotion to Trump and kind of shying away from Trump. He has been one of the biggest advocates for early voting. Certainly tried it in the recent midterm elections here in Virginia. Didn't go his way, but both chambers were very, very narrow, and I think it probably helped to keep some of those races close. So Republicans are going to have to embrace early voting if they want to stay competitive. This whole show up and overwhelm them on election day just doesn't seem to be a good strategy. One other factor I think that plays into New York 3 in particular is 2 years ago, everybody in New York on the Republican side was saying, oh yeah, this guy's great. You can trust us. Santos, vote for him. He'll be great. And now they're saying, oh, okay, here's our next candidate. And she might have been perfectly fine. But if you feel like you got burned in that district, you might not be so quick to believe them this time around. So,
yeah, I was going to say that this may not have been the right circumstances to run a little-known candidate. I'm thinking of the distinguished gentleman, Jeff Johnson, the name you know. Maybe it was really good to be the former congressman that a lot of people in this district had probably voted for several times before against a relative unknown. Now, again, I think, Mazi Pilip was a perfectly fine candidate, but you're right. There probably was a certain amount of buyer's remorse or, once bitten, twice shy mentality among certain voters. And, Republicans have to live with the consequences.
Yeah, and there wasn't a primary here. This was just the local Republicans saying, here's our candidate. So, and the Democrats did the same. So that's, I think, a factor there. But let's talk about our next great sponsor, and that is 4Patriots. Head to 4patriots.com/martini to see all the great deals, including getting a free solar panel when you purchase the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. The 2000X is worth its weight in gold. It has double the capacity. It's expandable, so you can run the big appliances like your fridge, your freezer, medical devices, and a whole lot more. It never needs gas, and as we've said all week, it comes with all those outlets, 12 outlets, including 4 AC, plus 2 USB-C outlets that charge your phone a whole lot faster than a regular plug, 20 times faster, in fact. Also, don't forget about fantastic deals before they're gone on the website, including Heartland's finest powdered milk kit or the scrambled egg kit. But don't just take my word for all of this. Look at the reviews for 4Patriots online. The customers are extremely happy with these and the other products that they buy there. Visit 4patriots.com/martini to get your Patriot Power Generator 2000X with the free solar panel included. Plus, get free shipping on orders over $97. Save more and get peace of mind now by going to the number 4patriots.com/martini. That's 4patriots.com/martini.
No matter what side of funding the war in Ukraine you fall on, enough is enough. The Watchdog on Wall Street podcast with Chris Markowski. Every day, Chris helps unpack the connection between politics and the economy and how it affects your wallet. Congress is taking your tax dollars, but they don't want to offset it by cutting anything else. They'll just throw it onto the pile of trillions of more debt. Cut it from somewhere else in the budget. Whether it's happening in D.C. or down on Wall Street, it's affecting you financially. Be informed. Check out the Watchdog on Wall Street podcast with Chris Markowski on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, Jim, time for our crazy martini now. And we've been kind of groaning about the Republicans' missteps here and really both of the first two martinis. They finally got over the finish line with the Mayorkas impeachment. So let's focus on the Democrats here in our crazy martini. As you know, there is really an open seat in California, the replacement for the late Dianne Feinstein, not seeking that seat for a full 6-year term. And so we've got luminaries in this race like Adam Schiff and Katie Porter and Barbara Lee and Steve Garvey, the ex-ball player, was the other one I saw on the stage in this clip. Barbara Lee, who is a far-left congresswoman from the Oakland area, is pushing for an increase in the minimum wage. Not 15, not 20, not 25, 50. She wants a $50 minimum wage. And why? To solve the affordability crisis. So the moderator asked her in the debate, hey, how are small businesses going to ever be able to sustain $50 an hour for their employees? And here's her explanation.
In the Bay Area, I believe it was the United Way, came out with a report that very recently, $127,000 for a family of 4 is just barely enough to get by. Another survey very recently, $104,000 for a family of 1, barely enough to get by. Low income because of the affordability crisis. And so just do the math. Just do the math. Of course, we have national minimum wages that we need to raise to a living wage. You're talking about $20, $25, fine. But I have got to be focused on what California needs and what the affordability factor is when we calculate this wage.
That ding should mean the end of the debate for her because it's just.
I thought she was in a boxing ring and she just got. She's talking like she's got a concussion. So that would be my concern there.
But of course, she couldn't address what the impact would be on small businesses because it would be absolutely devastating. The answer, I think we would say, Jim, is lower taxes, less regulation, and being able to pay your employees a little bit more. But Barbara Lee wants to bury businesses with this completely unrealistic idea.
So our founding fathers talked about the states being the laboratories of democracy, and not living in California there's some small part of me that's like, hey, let's try that. Let's see how that goes. Let's see what happens when you raise the minimum wage to $50 an hour. But somebody said, like, if some locality tried that, maybe it would be a useful illustration to the rest of the country, where this policy, inflation is terrible and high costs are terrible, and by golly, we're going to raise $50 an hour, that'll fix it, and then watch like all kinds of people get laid off, and to see every job currently getting paid less than $50 an hour just get eliminated. Or maybe if you're making $48, $49 an hour, they keep you around and they give you a small raise or something. I mean, again, like, I don't want to rehash the entire minimum wage debate here, but I'll just kind of observe, like, there are certain workers out there. As the father of 2 teenagers, I'm aware of the fact that they're teenagers. The only thing you have going for you is you work cheap. You're not skilled. You don't have much of a resume. You're looking for your first job. Why do teenagers end up in one of my first jobs was at Food Town, a grocery store, being a checkout clerk. It was not fun work. I'm not going to lie, burger flipping jobs, as they say, fast food industry, retail. You don't need it. You're fairly easy to get trained for those jobs, and you work cheap, and that's the advantage you have over getting that job over everyone else. And I think minimum wage should be enough to function. I don't mind where it is. If you want to say that in order to keep up with inflation, we got to increase it a certain this to keep a percentage, I'm open to those arguments. The idea of raising it to 50, though, is economic suicide. And I just want to point out that, like, the state of California, we'll see how Steve Garvey does. Hopefully he gets out of the play-in round, so to speak, and manages to make the final 2 candidates. It would be a huge victory for Republicans to have a candidate on the ballot in November. That's how bad things are for California Republicans. But the second thing I'm just thinking about is, you and I are around the same age, and I grew up in the Northeast, in an era where Jim Florio, the former governor of New Jersey, was taxing the heck out of my wages at Food Town, making that minimum wage. And Christine Todd Whitman, who probably, if she's remembered now, is probably seen as this rhino squish, but she ran on tax cuts and just beat him like a drum in the '93 gubernatorial election. Same year, Rudy Giuliani became elected mayor of the New York City. Rudy's had some rough days lately, but just kind of acknowledging that, like, after the Ed Koch and David Dinkins era, New York City, not a Republican heavily city by any stretch of the imagination, was like, we've had enough. Crime has gotten too bad. The city is just terribly mismanaged. We'll roll the dice on a Republican. Newt Gingrich in 1994. Like, eras in which Democrats had won for a long time came to an end as the public got fed up with bad government, fed up with bad results, and said, you know what? We may not love these Republicans, but we'll give them a try and we'll see how they do. I mean, actually, by general, by a lot of standards, they were fairly successful. There was a yearning for reform. You look at California, I don't see a yearning for reform from the right. It's always this attitude of, well, we just haven't been liberal enough. We just haven't been progressive enough. We just need to tax more. We just need to spend more. We just need to do more of what we're doing, and that will fix the problem. And the fact that they're having this exodus from the state, they always find new ways to, you've got California sunshine all the time, some of the most fertile agriculture in the whole wide world, Silicon Valley guys. How can you mismanage California? You have so many advantages going for you there, but that's a state of things. So yeah, I certainly hope to see some sort of Mount Vesuvius of frustration manifest in the voters out there. But so far, you look at from mayoral races to Senate races to gubernatorial races, the recall effort against Newsom just doesn't seem to be happening out there.
No, it's been a long time since California's been able to get a Republican in a prominent office. Maybe down ballot, there's been one in the last 20 years, but really the last one to win officially as a Republican is now focused on being a good neighbor.
Yeah.
And a lot of people on the right would say he was not much of a Republican in the last 4 years he was in office. But he is the last one to actually win either the governor's race or a Senate race out in California in a very long time.
Greg, there was a very hard lesson in that commercial, and that commercial was that they don't want any more Terminator sequels. Because otherwise he'd be doing that.
Yeah, if you get a chance to watch the clip of that debate when Barbara Lee is talking, watch Steve Garvey. I think that listening to that explanation for a $50 minimum wage was more painful than getting spiked at first base back in the day when he was playing for the Padres or the Dodgers. But it's going to be a long race. And even if he does make the final round, he's going to probably lose to one of these people, and it's going to be very frustrating that somebody like Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, or Barbara Lee is going to end up in the U.S. Senate. For
the second John Lovitz reference of this podcast, I can't believe I'm losing to this guy. But that's what it's going to be.
That's a Michael Dukakis reference from the Saturday Night Live days. Jim, have a great day. You are off tomorrow, and I'll see you back again on Friday.
See you Friday, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. Please do subscribe to the podcast if you don't already. If you haven't heard the Dana Perino interview from yesterday, please check that out as well. Also, thanks for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Also, get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a great Wednesday and join us again on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.